Okay, so welcome, Barbara from Loadish,
Thank you.
back
Yeah.
again to whatever this is. I don't even have a name for it yet. Isn't that kind of
Oh,
dumb? I should
yeah.
have a name by now. This is like
Go with the
our
flow.
third time.
Let's just talk and whatever can be done with it. To me, it's good because it's being useful for me. You
Okay.
gave the space to make questions, and I'm looking
Okay.
at it like that.
Yeah, great. Okay, so let's have a conversation. Yeah. Okay, good.
So I was making a kind of a set of questions around the Sedona method. And again, it's not that I don't have my own ideas about what I would answer to this, but I'm more curious about your answer to some of them. And some I have no idea, so I'm really just asking out of. So I would like to have an idea, like how did you come to experiment the first time the Sedona method? Was it on your own? Was it with someone?
It was on my own. I was living in New York and in a very small apartment. I had just recently graduated from Buddha U. We used to call it Buddha U. My Buddhist higher education, I had just finished all that and I moved to New York and so I started realizing that I needed something else and that what I learned didn't really incorporate emotions, like how to think or address them, how to think about them or how to deal with them. Yeah, I mean, it did very basically, but not for me. It didn't really work for me emotionally, like to do these practices. So I needed something else, and then I was just searching online. I found something somewhere online, probably on YouTube or something, and it was Larry Crane, who was one of Lester Levenson's direct students, and I heard him talk about it, this idea of releasing your emotions. And then I bought his course and then I started doing it and on my own. And I was also listening to a lot of Lester's recordings and watching recordings, videos. And I just kept doing it and it had a moderate effect. And then I forgot about it for about the next, 8 years or something. And then it came back to me more recently and I started listening to more of his audios. And then I started listening to his other students. Hale Dwoskin is the main one that I was listening to, and he was really inspiring. And I just started doing these practices again, and then I did them more and more. And then I started doing them while in retreat. And because I had a lot of emotional baggage, and I realized I wasn't really dealing with it. I was just suppressing it. Even though I thought I had dealt with it before, it was still there. And so so then I just kept doing it and I got more and more into like other teachers talking about emotions and um, how to address them, and a lot of teachers just didn't even talk about them at all, which I thought was odd.
It is odd
Because it's
the
such a they're all the time,
and spirituality,
yeah.
and whatever it has to probably start with that,
Right.
to
Yeah,
be
I
that
would
is
think
my
so. Yeah.
conclusions recently.
Yeah.
That I never thought about these things, and now I've been
Yeah.
thinking a lot since I'm learning about the Sedona method.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. So it's interesting. Maybe as Westerners, we're a little bit different than the people that these other older teachings formed around, these cultures that the teachings developed in that we're now applying to our culture. Maybe that they were different and they had different ways of addressing their emotions, or
I would be curious to
yeah. I mean,
see how they did.
yeah. I think also we think about emotions differently than they did, and we talk about them differently. And we're a culture that's based on Freud, and Jung. So, and we have this idea of like therapy as a
Cognitive only thing.
yeah. It's not holistic, right? It's kind of separated from our soul or whatever, or the spirit. It's like the mental realm.
Jung doesn't say that so much.
No, he doesn't.
Freud
You're
does,
right.
yeah.
You're right. Yeah. So, but I think a lot of us are coming from that paradigm that is separate, that we're just thinking of emotions as these things that are not really connected to the whole of what we are.
They are the base, and there's so many paradigms that we're not considering.
Yeah.
Like I've been like going deeper into this as I understand more and I practice more the Sedona method at home or with you.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And there's so many questions that started appearing. One is choice. Like,
Yeah.
what is choice? Like, do I choose?
Yeah.
Do I choose to release my emotions? Do I choose
Yeah.
not to be overwhelmed by them? That
Yeah.
is actually a choice. That was a big thing. That was revolutionary.
Yeah, I
That
know.
was like,
For me too.
wow,
Yeah, yeah.
he's crazy. He's just, talking.
Yeah.
But no, there is that, but then there's more questions. It almost feels like counterintuitive, or in Portuguese we say contra natura, counter nature, the Sedona method, but actually is not, is counter culture, not
Yeah.
nature. Like, for example, fully welcoming emotions. That's a huge thing.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. We just talk about it like a normal stuff, but it's big. Most of the
Yeah.
times okay, the happy stuff, we're like, yeah, it was great. And then it goes. We release them really easily,
Yeah.
don't we? The
Yeah.
happy stuff. But
Right.
then the negative stuff, just the idea that we can release or even fully welcoming the emotions, it's something really radical. And that's what I'm really enjoying in because
Mhm.
since I started listening about the Sedona method, when it started, I started digging more into emotions, and it just eventually took me to it's the first step of a spiritual awakening. It's to deal with that.
I
It's to
agree.
know thyself and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, knowing yourself is knowing your
yeah,
emotions.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And letting go is another big thing. Is another paradigm. Like, what do you mean by letting go? Like, we need them. They are important. They are mine. They are experiences.
Yeah.
And I've been having these conversations with people, like friends that
Uh-huh.
I know that would definitely need to practice Sedona method a bit.
Yeah.
And their answer is when I explain, because it's so simple, and that actually I think it makes people suspicious because it's too simple. We're
Yeah.
talking about a big thing that is here
Yeah.
in the heart, in your body, in your
Yeah.
mind. It takes
Yeah.
over your life. And suddenly you're saying, well, you just do this, and that, and they don't accept it. People don't easily accept that. And so just accepting that, it's a huge thing. The answer I've been having has been, what was the other day? Oh no, I like my emotions. I'm
Yeah.
okay with them.
Yeah.
I said, but you're saying you're really
Yeah.
depressed.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, but I know I will come out of this and I will eventually learn, how
Yeah.
to come out of it. And I said, great, that's great. But this is one tool. It's
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
tool. It's just a
Right.
tool.
Right.
But the idea of getting rid of it, it feels like defeat. It feels like being
Yeah.
cowardice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
I agree. And it's a lot.
apathy,
Yep.
there's a lot of this,
Mhm.
which is something I never was, and I think I never will be. I can be many things but not that. And when a friend looks at me and just goes, but that's this, but what you're doing is that, and I said, no, but it's hard to explain, because if you don't try it, I feel like I don't have the words to make them understand that it's worth trying, and opening yourself, because that's also the thing. It's opening to a possibility. Even if you think it's silly, just open to the possibility.
Yeah.
That's really, yeah, it's really rare. And I don't know what is really the question here. It's more like, yeah, have you been finding this difficulty when you talk with people?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. Even with me, you found it.
Well, I mean, having taught it
Yeah.
in a public setting, um, you know, you have people show up and they're just like, What are you talking about? Like, why are you talking about emotions as negative things? Like, why do you say all emotions are negative or contractions? And I like my emotions and I identify with my emotions and I don't want to let them go, like you just said.
Mhm.
And the problem is that I find is that people are so identified with their emotions that they can't let them go, because that's part of their character identity. It's part
Their
of their
story.
ego. It's part of the
Yeah.
story. Yeah. So letting go of that is death, and most people don't want
It's
it.
the obliteration of what you built for
Yeah.
yourself. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
which is
conclusion.
me. Like
Yeah.
it's equivalent to jumping off of a cliff, you know? So I try to kind of gently build up more and more, but you really have to. I've found that presenting the idea to people that are not ready is just doesn't work. You have to be ready for it, and
Yeah.
you have to be either have a certain amount of wisdom already, or you have to have been thrown up against the wall a few times by your emotions and understand that they're not really serving you the way you
Hmm.
thought they were. And that's what it was for me, you know? Like I just at a certain point I realized like this sucks. Like this is not a life, you know?
Hmm.
Like being controlled or led around by my emotions is not a life. It's just slavery. You
Yeah.
know, it's just you're not able to make choices. You're just reacting to everything and it's all on autopilot and you're not really controlling. I mean, you're not controlling anything anyway, but you don't have any freedom. There's no freedom in being identified with your emotions. There's none at all. So I guess having practiced and studied Buddhism really helped me to see that as well. In Buddhism, they talk about it differently. They talk about it as skandhas. Skandhas are the parts of the human being that are like they call it the aggregates, I think, and they're separating the different aspects of the mind so that you can identify these things.
So they do
But they
talk
don't
about emotions.
they don't yeah, not like we do, you know, and not like the Sedona method, not like Lester did. They talk about them as part of the mind. Basically, it's the mind. So emotions are part of the mind, and I don't think they see them as different from thoughts. Whereas we say emotions are not thoughts because they're in the body, they're a sensation. But in my experience, emotions are thoughts. They're a reaction to a thought which is stored in the body. So you could say it is a thought stored in the body, or you could say it's a reaction to a thought. It's a physical manifestation of a thought. And or always that thought is based in the fear of losing the body because we're identified with the body. And so emotions are our uh,
It's a protection.
is a protection mechanism. It's an alarm system for keeping your body alive. And and Lester talked about this. It's so simple. It's so simple and true. For me, it's very true that most people don't get it because it's like most people are like, oh, emotions are all these complex things and it feels this way and it feels that way. And they don't understand that it's just one thing. It's fear. It's all based on fear. And if you put it in that if you give it that definition, then it's much easier to handle them and to learn how to let go of them if you want to, and also to learn how they serve you and how they don't serve you. And they mostly don't serve you. So,
Yeah, because they tend to get stuck, isn't it? Like when we're children,
yeah.
we naturally observe them or feel them. We probably don't observe them, with awareness, but we feel them
Yeah.
and then we let them go. We just pass to the next one. I see that in children, in my daughter. And as we become adults, we start needing these, to identify with them. We start needing to create a persona out of the events that come into our lives. This starts becoming important. But the thing is that it becomes so important that we attach to them in such a way that they get stuck and they stay in our body. I would say that's an adulthood issue of using the mind too much. And now even what's the name of this somatic exercises, they are about that. Like I've been doing this practice about with the tremor, with
I don't know that.
provoked tremor. So basically, it comes with the observation that animals, when they go through a stressful situation, and the situation is gone, they almost died or whatever, but the situation is gone, they start on purpose shaking their body. They shake their body for some minutes, for some time, and then they keep going.
And that releases
And
the
that's
emotions.
yes, this is the observation that many scientists are making about it. That is a way to release the emotion.
Right.
as an animal thing. That makes total sense. We don't do that. We never do that. And especially we just get attached to the bad ones and we
Yeah.
just accumulate them, and we need to accumulate them. It's really sad, the whole thing, to
Yeah. All
realize
right.
that it's actually a very
The animals are much
non-instinct.
more evolved
Yeah,
than
really.
we are. Yeah.
And children, and
Yeah.
children, because I was researching a bit, and there is this perspective of emotions are naturally transient. They are supposed to come and go,
Yeah.
because they are supposed to be signs for you to know how to deal with the situation,
Right.
in a stressful situation, for
Yeah.
example, with a
Yeah.
negative one.
Yeah.
And then they're transient, they're supposed to continue,
Right.
but we don't process them. We run away from that,
Yeah.
from the feeling it, the observing it, which is also a very radical thing. How come you observe something for some time? And basically, this is the most important part, it seems, of the Sedona method, is to observe and feel and sit with it.
Right.
And then it makes it better. Just by doing that, it makes it better. And it makes
Yeah.
sense that it's because they are transient. This is what they are supposed to be doing. They come, you become aware, and then they continue. Just like the thoughts
Absolutely.
in meditation. It's like
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
and
Good point.
that is really beautiful. I've been falling in love with this method because of that, and going into this.
That's great.
Yeah, and emotions can manifest physically. Yeah, and with the nervous system and emotion regulation. Sorry, I cannot read my writing now.
That's all right.
I have a really shitty writing.
But yeah, on that topic, you can regulate your emotions just by doing breath work,
Yes, there are ways, obviously. Mindfulness and
vagus nerve techniques and meditation. And I also think that if you have a certain perspective on emotions and you have a supportive community and you have, like the monks had, the Buddhist monks and nuns who are supporting each other and they're in a container where they're all doing the same thing basically, then my idea is that they naturally just kind of help each other get through process things. And with meditation, the meditation is also a processing of emotions because you're not just being aware of the thoughts, you're being aware of the sensations in the body, and
yeah,
emotions are the sensations in the body. So in that respect, the paradigm is different. They don't think about emotions as these things that we need to dig up and release. It's just a
mhm,
part of their process. They're already being addressed via the practice of pranayama and meditation and whatever other practices they do, ritual practices such as prostrating and making the altar and doing art, drawing and painting and sand mandalas and things like that. And I mean, there's many rituals that they have, prayer wheels and things like that. All of these things are ways to focus the mind on what is happening. And since emotions are part of what is happening, they get processed automatically as a part of that process.
okay. They don't go in such a
They're not targeting emotions like
yes,
we are.
yes, or analyzing it to the core, but they are dealing
Yeah.
with them. They are
That's what I'm
processing them.
saying. They're
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
processing in
yeah.
them.
Mm.
Yeah. So but I myself am not a very ritualistic person in that way, at least religiously. I have
Mhm.
other rituals, but I never really cottoned to the idea of religious ritual. It doesn't seem natural to me, but it does seem very natural and sensible for me to just have a daily awareness practice of some kind, including emotions. And targeting the emotions specifically is very useful for me personally, not just meditation, but like if you're doing some kind of Vedanta meditation or even Buddhist meditation, you're not really, I mean, in self-inquiry, it's a different process, and it's not addressing the emotions directly. It's more like addressing them indirectly, because when you are cutting through, they say like in Dzogchen, it's like cutting through. You're cutting through the illusion of the self.
Mhm.
When you cut through the illusion of having a personality or an ego or being the body, if you cut through that illusion, then emotions automatically go. And so, but it's a process. It doesn't usually happen all at once. Just like the
Yeah, it's
Sedona
not an
method is
easy
also a
one. Like
process.
you don't cut the illusion like that.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah. But there is the practice of instant enlightenment, which
Hmm.
is more along the lines of Dzogchen.
Hmm.
And that is instant, but it happens over and over and over again. So you're cutting through in that instant. That is total awareness, but you have to keep doing it. So you're doing it over and over again, but it's the practice of instant recognition that you are not the body, that you are the self or whatever you want
Hmm.
to call it.
But you're saying that they need to keep doing it
Yes.
because
So it's a
the
repetition.
experience was too fast for what is the
No,
reason? I
the
didn't.
reason is because we're so accustomed or we're so deeply conditioned to think the other way,
Hmm.
that we are the body, that we are the ego, that we are the character that we've
Hmm.
been playing. We're so conditioned so deeply that to go the other direction, which is the exact opposite, takes a lot of repetition because
Hmm.
we've been doing it for how many lifetimes or whatever.
Even if you are aware, and even if you had an experience that made you aware that you're not the body, that you are definitely not
Depends
the
on how
ego.
deeply that experience was.
Okay.
So if you had a really deep experience where you saw the nature of reality directly,
Hmm.
or a direct perception of emptiness, sometimes they call it, then that it flips the switch for you. But you still have all of these seeds, the karmic seeds that they
Hmm.
call them seeds because they're still able to grow into negative thought patterns. So you still have this potential for misunderstanding your reality. It's all still there until you get rid of all of those karmic seeds. You're still going to experience suffering because you're still partly under the illusion. You're still partly asleep. But according to the teachings, once these karmic seeds are emptied out, when you've done enough practice, then that's it. That's enlightenment. That's Buddhahood, depending on what tradition you are talking about. Yeah. So I guess the point that I was making is the emotions are undercut by this recognition that we're not the body, because the emotions are born out of the identification with the body. So if you're no longer identified with the body, then the emotions automatically don't appear because there's no attachment anymore. So there's nothing to emote about. There's no, it's just, there's no separation consciousness to emote about. So the emotions just disappear completely. But that's
But then how do you decide to act upon a situation you need to? That's what I don't
intuition.
understand. Okay.
Intuition. Yeah.
Mm.
So your soul or your spirit automatically knows what to do next. Always. It's like in Zen, they call it chop wood, carry water. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. You're still going through the motions, except after enlightenment, there's no strategizing. It's all automatic. And in fact, you can completely disidentify from the body and still be going about your day, chopping wood and carrying water, because the body is on a
But
program. The
just not
body is
from
a
an
program.
emotional experience.
You won't have suffering. So you might have emotions, or the body might react to things in a certain way, but you won't identify with what's going on.
Okay. That I get it, yeah. But there is the emotions. There are the emotions. They just
You
are not
can have
taking over and
emotions.
you're
Yeah.
not identifying with them.
You can have emotions, but they're not the same experience as if you're
Yeah,
identified.
for
Like if
sure.
you're
Yeah.
angry and you're identified, then that sucks, right? It sucks. It's
Yeah.
bad. But if you're angry and you're not identified, they sometimes refer to that as wrath. So, like, it's just automatic. So, anger is interesting. The opposite of anger, or the positive aspect of anger, or the enlightened aspect of anger, is clarity. total clarity. And you can see that when you get angry, it's like, I know exactly like this, like that, like it's like perfectly clear exactly. Or like if a mother is watching their kid cross the road and there's a car coming or something, like, or if the kid's in trouble in some way, it's like automatic. It's like, boom. It's like if the wrath needs to be there, it's there. But there's no suffering for you because you're not really the body, and you understand you have the experience of not being the body. You're just observing the body doing what it does in the so-called world that it lives in.
Yeah, that must be great.
Must be, yeah.
So, are there good emotions and bad emotions? I remember at a certain point you spoke about high frequency emotions, low frequency emotions. To me, it makes more sense to look at emotions as they are useful. They are, it's a useful system. It's that calls attention to what we need to do. The main thing is not to attach to them, not to identify with them, and all that, which we know it's a
So
process.
let me clarify one thing.
Yeah.
Emotions are born out of attachment. So there's a little bit of a misunderstanding with most people about emotions. When we have more space between what we call the self and the body, or the body mind, then emotions don't really come up as much. And it's not really because you're in a state of bliss. The more space you have from the body, the more blissful it becomes.
Yes, I experimented that.
Yeah. Okay. So the emotions that come up are emotions can still come up. I believe until you're fully enlightened, they will still come up. However, because you have that space, it's much easier to deal with them. And the effect of the emotion is much, much less. So it's like a gradual separation or mitigation or lessening of the experience of the emotion. And the emotion is a negative experience fundamentally because it's a contracted state. And so because it's a contraction, it doesn't feel good because we're contracting, we're reacting to our environment. We're not just expressing freely, it's a reaction to what we perceive in our reality as separate from us.
But what about then what they call the positive emotions?
According to Lester's
Genuineness,
system,
calmness
yeah,
and serenity, and yeah, I don't know, there's more, but
yeah. So originally I would say, yes, those are positive emotions. But now that I understand the fundamentals of the Sedona method, I would say, no, they're not really emotions or you could say they're positive emotions because we're feeling them. Or maybe you could say they're feelings. I don't know. I'm not really, I'm not hung up on nomenclature. Um, but yeah, so I kind of would rather just not consider them emotions at all because they're so different, because they're not based on fear. They're based on freedom and love, They're based
but
on
our experience in this planet is about that. It's the yin and the yang. It's the positive and the negative,
but this is good,
which
right?
where both bring us experience, and all of it's good. All of it should be accepted. That to me, it's a bit more, it makes more sense, not to create a duality in that, and just accept that as its experience. Maybe you can call it positive or negative, but whatever it is, there is the potential that you will grow with it, with the
Sure,
good stuff and the bad. No separation.
sure. What I would say, my understanding is a little bit different from that. And what I would say is that there are what we call positive emotions that are born out of attachment, and attachment is based on fear because we're attached to something because we feel separate, so we want to attach to something to feel more whole. And so in that sense, like if you take for instance romantic love, we call it love. It's not really love though, it's attachment. It's I've fallen in love with someone means I'm attached to them.
Yeah.
I feel better about myself. I feel more whole when I'm with them. And I call that love. So that's what we call a positive emotion. but I'm saying it's not really positive. It's just a temporary up that leads to another down
Because it comes from
because it comes from ignorance.
vulnerability
Ultimately, it comes from ignorance.
and not being, but then you would say that love in its real meaning, it's only attained when you are enlightened.
Yes, it's an enlightened quality, you could say.
Mhm.
So if we have a little bit of enlightened quality in us, we can feel this unconditional state of bliss, which we call love. Which is a connection. In my mind, it's a connection to everything. Everything is us.
Mhm.
That's real love. So there's no, oh, I love my partner, but I don't love the guy down the street. It's not like that. There's no separation. So
Yeah.
so it's unconditional. Therefore, it's everything and everyone, including me, and it's all just one.
Okay, it's
Uh,
unconditional love.
yeah,
And the other one is not unconditional, although we like to talk about
exactly.
relationships and that I love you
Yeah.
unconditionally. Okay, we all know that's
We
not
place
true.
conditions on our partners all the time.
Yeah, but what
You know,
about a father and a son?
always conditions. There are always conditions. Yeah, there are conditions
I'm
there.
still not sure about that one.
There are also there is, yes, I agree. There is also unconditional love there, but there are also conditions
There are
as well.
conditions. Okay, so it's not totally unconditional.
Yeah,
Yes. Okay, I see what
yeah.
you
But
mean.
we have this innate unconditional affection for our family. It's born in us to like. That's because why is that? It's because they're a part of us, right? They came from us. They're a part of us, and so we relate to them in a way that is us. It's another form of us, and
It's
therefore
another
it's
form
on.
of ego, you're saying.
No, it's not.
Sorry, I just took the conclusion.
No, not at all. It's a fundamental underlying connection of the soul or the spirit or whatever you want to call it, what the higher self saying, that's me also.
Or just the need to survive and to keep your genes
Could be that.
going,
Yeah.
which is really ego like.
Yeah. Well, that's the part
Because
that's
that's not
conditional.
that is believing in death.
Yeah. But
And
that's
it's
the
really,
conditional part.
now I would
So
like to
this,
take silence to think about this. Anyway,
I, maybe it's not such a clear cut thing and maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but
you do
I
that
do
a little
think
bit.
I,
It's okay. I'm
yeah,
not saying it's a bad
helps
thing,
me
but
to
I need to be
cognize things.
aware
Yeah.
of that.
So I think we have both. We have both because we all have an innate wisdom within
Mhm.
us, and we all are attached to a greater or lesser degree to the body and to the world. To the degree that we're attached to the illusion, to that degree, we have conditional love. And to the degree that we're not attached to the illusion and that we see clearly what is, that we're not the body, that we're everything and nothing, to that degree, we have unconditional love. And all of us have that inside of us already. It's just being covered up to more or less.
All of us have the need to experiment that, which is the weirdest thing. Like it's not weird. I just chose the wrong word. But I've been, with conversations that with people I know that go a bit deeper into our feelings and all that. There's always this underlying feeling that I can sense in what they are saying. My mother said that to me once. Okay, I will just die not experimenting what it's to be loved unconditionally. And this stayed in my mind for a long time, thinking, is there that? Does that exist? But I think maybe in the end, we all would like that. We all would like to feel that, what is to be loved unconditionally. And we expect that from relationships. We idealize relationships and we expect that. But it's probably not even possible, with this mind frame that we
Definitely
have.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say no. Mhm.
But for example, to a child, I would open the possibility, although now we came to the conclusion that it might just be the wanting the genes to continue, but which is really sad. Yeah, I was thinking the other day, would I give my life for someone? I'm not sure. And, for many years, I thought I would, as an activist and as this and that and in
Yeah.
politics. Oh, yes, I would give my life. And to be honest, like now, I don't know if I would give my life in such an easy way. I would definitely not give my life for the love of my life,
Right.
my partner.
Yeah.
I came to this conclusion. I don't know, maybe I separate the world like that. And I would not give my life for my mother, which I loved deeply.
Right.
And then I started thinking, who would I? And Olivia is the only one that stays there.
Interesting.
She's the only one that I'm sure I would.
Yeah.
And I'm really sure I would.
Yeah. Wow.
The others, I don't know. But anyway, yeah, about just the unconditional love came. That's a big issue for me also.
What do you mean a big issue?
I've been thinking a lot about it.
Oh, I
It's
see. I
it's a
see.
big thing because
Yeah.
I started by being aware that I was creating an expectation of feeling that, just like
Right.
my mom
Yeah.
told me years ago.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Well, I mean, it's part of our. It's a kind of a new part of our culture too. To like
wanting it all.
wanting to have
Yeah,
unconditional love,
yeah,
the desire to have, because everyone's talking about, oh, we gotta
yeah.
have to
And
be
people
have to
use
love
that
each
word
other.
so like,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like no,
But I think most people don't really understand
yeah, what it
the
means.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
or
definitely.
have experienced the real thing,
Yeah,
or at least maybe they have experienced it, but maybe they don't really understand that they have experienced it.
yeah. And how love can be confused as so many other things.
Yeah,
It's yeah, yeah. Yeah, maybe there's so much to talk on this area.
for sure.
What is spirituality for you?
I have no idea. I don't even know what that word means. What does that mean?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
Can you
asking.
define it?
You're the teacher, not me.
No. No. What is spirituality? Okay, let's define it. Practice of connecting with your true self, maybe?
Uh-huh.
Would that be
Yeah.
spirituality?
Yeah, there's one.
Okay. So if that's the definition of spirituality, then that's what it is. It's a practice. It's something that we're unlearning how to do or how to be. Or we're learning how to be and not how to do. So learning
Maybe,
how to be is relearning how to be is the practice of spirituality then, based on that definition for me.
but based on that definition, we could assume that we've been doing that all our lives,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
which maybe just the conclusion should be we are spiritual. Dot.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there are any
Maybe
of
we're
us
not
that aren't.
aware of it. Yes, exactly.
We're
But
not, there are
I
no unspiritual or non-spiritual people.
yes,
Because we're all spirit,
yes.
right?
But then the difference is, when people say, it's more about the awareness of that spirituality in you.
Hmm.
Is that the big difference?
It could be. I mean,
One
I
time I
stopped.
spoke to you about the path of
Yeah.
spirituality, and you didn't said like something that there is no
Well,
path.
there is no path because
Uh,
there's no time. There's no linear time. And therefore it's all just here now. And that's why I don't
mhm,
like to use the word path.
mhm, okay.
And that's how I understand some of the teachers, such as Krishnamurti, who talked about the pathless path. You know, it's not really a path. It's just being. It's just there's no path to being.
Yeah,
That path connotes travel. And we're not
yeah,
traveling anywhere. So in that sense, it doesn't make sense to call it a path then. You know.
yeah,
So, but yeah, it's just words, right? I mean, if it works for us to have a path, then let's have a path. But for me, I'm kind of over the path. I'm done with
mhm,
having a path. I don't want to
okay.
walk down the path anymore. I just want to sit and be, you know?
Yeah.
So
But what do you call to that moment when you see things are shifting and that you are aware of yourself in a way you've never been? And
realization
that,
or enlightenment or awareness,
yeah,
But I'm getting more and more away from labeling things.
yeah,
Because anything you label it is a limitation. So if I label it enlightenment, then I have an idea in my head about what enlightenment is. And
mhm,
certainly it's not that. It cannot be that
yeah,
because that's a concept. It's just a thought. I have a thought about what it is to be fully liberated, but that will never, ever be the experience of liberation. because it's dead. It's already dead. It's
It's
a
what
thought.
can be passed by words.
Yeah, it's just a conventional
Okay, but it doesn't
thing.
mean it is incomplete, definitely, but it doesn't mean it's wrong.
I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just I'm moving away from it more and
Hmm.
more. Also, I see that people misuse, or they maybe not misuse, but a lot of these definitions get taken the wrong way and they get co opted by the masses and who don't really know
Like
what,
love and
like love, for
unconditional.
instance, like mindfulness. Mindfulness is a horrible word. Like, who would want to be mindful? It's ridiculous. Like mind is your thought. If mind is our thoughts or the thinking apparatus, you
Mhm.
want to be more full of thoughts? No, I mean I want the opposite of that. I want mindlessness. So I was talking with someone the other day about this. Like
Douglas, the
terms get
guru of mindlessness.
terms get co-opted. I don't know if it's just out of like mass stupidity or misunderstanding of reality or what, or if it's intentional by the powers, the so-called powers that be. But terms get co-opted to mean the opposite of what they originally were. If you look at the etymology of a lot of words, sometimes they're the opposite of what they
Hmm.
originally were.
Yeah, this is an obvious
This is an example.
example.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really careful now with words and how we use them. Although I do like the word enlightenment because I think it describes some experiences I've had. It's all just light, it's filled with light, or um, it's being enveloped by light. And also the feeling is light, like a lighter feeling. So it's a visual, and it's a it's a sensation feeling, or it's like a what we call a feeling in the body.
Hmm.
And there is light inside our bodies. It's if we see the energy, we can see the energy. You know, and it's quite filled with light. I don't know how else to say it.
Hmm.
So I like that term. I like awareness. I like liberation, freedom. But yeah, I was listening to a Papa G, uh, a recording of him talking about. He was talking with a student about freedom. The student asked, "How can I be free? How can I experience freedom?" And he just kind of shook his head. The student said, "What is freedom?" And he responded, "It's a cage." Do you get it? Because this
Because of the
this
concept.
this
Yeah.
person was stuck
Yeah.
in wanting something that they didn't have called freedom. So this is part of the trap of so-called spirituality, is wanting something that you already have. Like they often talk about the necklace. Lester talked about this. A woman is wearing a necklace and she forgot that she was wearing the necklace, and she went everywhere looking around, everywhere for the necklace. And Lester said, my only job is just to point out that you're already wearing the necklace. That's it.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah.
Which again, that's probably not what she was needing, but maybe it was.
I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah. I think that's anyway. I think too much about these things because I think sometimes it's more about if we're actually helping people to be more aware of themselves, if we're guiding them into that, if we're giving some support into that action. To me, I see that the most important thing is not because we repeat things or we say things that it will happen to them, but it's the way that we transmit the message according to what we sense. It's the way they need to understand it. That to me is what a teacher, maybe I'm idealizing a teacher, but that's what a teacher should be. It's to talk in a way that that person can absorb that information because it's too important. It's
Yeah.
very important to be passing this, if you are sure about things, if you have them solid inside of you. Like
Yeah.
I have doubts all the time. I have many, many doubts. I think too much about things and then I get lost. I lose myself a bit in it. But I also am aware of the moments that I come to conclusions and they stay and they become a part of my path, I was gonna say. But anyway, they become a part of my process.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, and just to say that sometimes it's important to try to say it in a way and explain it in a way and use concepts like that to make it easy for people to understand, instead of just repeating things in a symbolic way, hoping they will click one day.
Yeah.
I don't know. It feels like there is a responsibility also. If you come to a certain point, I think it makes sense to help others come the same way.
Yeah. I
And
mean, it's
and for
possible.
that, you need to adapt the communication and the
Yeah.
skills of doing it. Just
Yeah.
some things have been coming.
Yeah. It's an interesting point,
Mm.
um, and it's a good point that you made, and I think it's a super useful point. However, I don't, I don't think that we can ultimately, we're not really able to teach how we think that we're teaching. And
How? Wait, sorry.
so I don't really think that teaching is what we think it is, or learning. I don't think learning is what we think it is either. I think that we have this idea that we can change someone's life by teaching them something, but I don't think we really know how it affects other people. And I don't think that trying harder, for me personally, I don't think that trying harder to convey things helps people to understand things better. And I don't think I have any power over that. When I don't think I have any power over anyone else learning anything from this body mind. There's no power for that. There is no teaching. I'm not teaching anything really. I'm presenting things that I think are useful and important. It might be useful and important to other people, but honestly, at the end of the day, I have no idea how what I'm saying is going to be received.
Mm.
And
And you don't care, basically. It's
well,
it's fine as well.
I can't care because I have no power over that. The only thing I can do is express, or
Mhm.
I can let these teachings express themselves.
In your best, as your best attempt, and then let go.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's not really a best attempt either, because that's that brings along the idea of effort, and
Mm.
it's not really effort. You know, it's more like the creative process is where you just step aside and just let it come out as it wants to come out. And then it feels so much better. And then it seems like people are getting it more, or they're receiving it better because it's not me doing it. There's no personality teaching any another personality at all. It's just a connection. It's just a oneness. And so like I'm talking to myself across the room from me. Barbara is a part of Douglas in that sense, you know. And so I'm just talking to myself here, you know.
So is that why Douglas Paul Smith one day was here in the floor sitting in the sofa, and then he decided, I'm gonna go to a font and start doing a meditation course and a Sedona Method
It
course.
wasn't really
And
Douglas that did
okay,
that.
wow. Go for
No, that was an it was an intuition that was like something that just had to happen, and I just followed it.
it.
That's all. Yeah, I don't I don't really think that people need it. Everyone has their own path. If I thought people needed it, then I would think like then they're missing something in their lives. You know, they need dharma in their lives to
Mm.
better themselves, to make themselves more nice and more
See,
free.
right.
No, I mean they're my projection, you know? So if I'm just I mean, this is another way of looking at it, of course.
I,
If I'm just sitting at home, I think really good thoughts about all the people in Benfica and Serra do Açor. That's maybe even better, you know? I'm just throwing this out there. Maybe it's a better way to help the so-called other characters in my play, you know?
so you're also saying that it was not out of the goal of teaching or giving information or helping or supporting, whatever. It was out of your instinct to connect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Mm.
And to express what I'm going through, and yeah, expression and connection. Yeah. Because I really think that I mean, on maybe on the surface level, I am helping people, but that's not really, like I said, it's not in my power. It's not important, you know. It's and it's all me. So it's really just all me projecting and expressing, onto other parts of me. So in that sense, it's Leela. It's Leela. It's divine play, Now, I'm not saying that I'm always like that, Sometimes I'm the ego and I'm the character and I'm playing Douglas the teacher.
Mhm.
And that's a different thing. But
Yeah, but that is not your goal.
that's not
That
my
is not
goal. That's not
okay.
my goal. No.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. So Sedona Method.
Um,
You have any more on Sedona Method?
when you were talking about the mindfulness, breath work, all these things about processing emotions, I wanted to ask at that moment, music,
What about it?
is it means to process emotions?
Absolutely.
Okay. Or
Absolutely.
to just get attached to them and identify with them because that's what I hear and that is my type of music and that's what
Well,
I like.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. For
Hmm.
me, it depends on where you're at.
Hmm.
If you are in a place where you're attaching to your emotions and you play music, then you might get more attached to your emotions and revel in the passion and the insanity of your emotions, and go down the shame spiral.
Which in a way is looking at them, isn't it?
Could be.
Isn't it sitting with them when you do that?
I mean, I
Is it
can't.
like really taking in everything that you're feeling in your body? And I feel like that when I listen to some music. Like the emotions are there, I am observing them, and I'm giving myself to them for that
Yeah.
5, 10 minutes, and then I feel better.
Yeah.
You don't have that?
No, I definitely do on a daily basis.
So
I
it's a
have
bit
that.
like
Yeah.
processing and observing the emotion, taking it in, seeing it, being aware of it in you, and then it gets better.
Yeah.
Like what do?
I can't generalize, but
Mm-mm.
specifically, there are many instances where that's happened for sure, where it's processing of what's already there. The music is accessing, or I am accessing the emotions in the body via the music because of a certain vibration that connects to the vibration of the emotion. And then, yeah, it sets it free. Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. I mean, that's been a lot of my experiences, and it's partly why I play music, uh, because it is such a great. It's not only release, but it's expression, and expression is automatically release, right? You're releasing when you express, you're releasing something, right? So it's kind
Exactly.
of the same thing for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's beautiful.
It's great tool.
Yeah,
Art, painting, and drawing. Can it be a means for you to process emotions?
absolutely, 100%.
So
Yeah.
why would you meditate before doing it? Why not just throw the whole raw feeling to the canvas and,
It's
be
a great
there
point. Yeah,
and
it's a
you put
great.
it? Why
Yeah.
process first and make it all like instead of just doing it?
Well, I'll tell you why. I tried that way for many years, and it works a little bit, but it doesn't address the core issue. Until you understand what true wisdom is, you're still on the surface. You're just scratching at the surface of your life. Even if you're doing art, even if you're a creative person, you can get so depressed and so hung up on your desires, and you can be expressing that and staying with that attachment without realizing what you're doing. And that happened to me.
That's
I
explainable.
started drinking and I started smoking,
Mhm.
and I just was like, what the hell was what is happening to me? Like, I'm an artist. I should be happy, but I wasn't. And then I discovered meditation. My painter friend convinced me to go on a 7-day retreat on the East Coast when I was living in Seattle, my little tiny little art studio. And after that retreat, it was like everything changed. Everything changed. It was like I never saw that before. That's real clarity. That's like real, I don't even know what to call it. It's like life. It's a direct connection to life itself that I didn't have before. Even though I was super creative, authentically passionate artist, I wasn't connecting in that way because I was just scratching at the surface. I was painting on the surface instead of going down inside myself and really understanding. And then I realized later that that's why I was creating art. I was trying to understand myself, but I was only understanding it on a very shallow level. I wasn't really going, I wasn't really understanding who I was and what I was here for, until I started doing these practices. And then it opened me up. And then I realized, wow, like, okay. And then after a while, I realized that creativity is part of my path. So I had to go back to it. That's why I found Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, because he combined creativity with these Buddhist practices, meditation, and other things. And so I couldn't divorce myself from Douglas the creator or the artist, because that had to play itself out. But what I could do is I could step back from that person and see it for what it really is and let it continue and let it be creative, but have some space from it, and then be able to understand and to have clarity around what it's all about. And then it was like, right, okay, that's why I'm doing this. And it makes it so much easier. It makes getting into flow easier. It makes painting easier. It makes everything easier, you
And
know?
how did you realize that that was got better because of that? What made you realize that? Did you started liking more what you painted, being more
No,
happy with it?
no, not at all.
How did
Wasn't
you
the
realize
effect.
that was an improvement in your?
I realized it was about the process and not the product, because I was working for a product before. I had this idea in my head about what it was that I wanted to create. And I have a very vivid imagination, and I can visualize, I was at a point, I was just visualizing the whole show, the whole exhibition before I even started one painting. And then I was like, well, I'm already done with the exhibition. Like, why do I need to paint anything? It's already done. There's no, and then I realized, wait a minute, it's not about the paintings. It's not about the product. It's not about the exhibition. It's about the process. Like, the process is all the fun. It's about exploration, like turning the page or finding a new blank canvas, and confronting the fear of that, of what to create next, and the excitement of that, and seeing what comes out. It's an incredible journey. But that journey doesn't exist if you're just focused on a product, an end result.
Yeah, I get
Right.
that.
And then it's like, it's no fun. It's all just work. It's work. It's labor. And I realized, like, I was just laboring, and I wasn't happy. I was laboring to get these paintings done, and they were good paintings. They had a lot in them. But, when I had my kind of nervous breakdown after my second Vipassana retreat, I started drawing these little these funny little faces, because I thought I was losing my mind. And I had to draw them. I had to do it. It wasn't an option, because I really thought like I was going to lose it and not come back. So I was drawing these little faces, and then after a while, after I kind of got better and more grounded, I realized, like, these are brilliant. Like, these tiny little doodles are fucking brilliant. There's so much life in them. They're so vivid. There was so much passion and so much emotion that went into that, because of all the suffering I went through. Um, that 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 produced something really magical, you know instead, because I wasn't trying to do anything. I was just like, fuck, I'm gonna die if I don't make these drawings. So,
Did you liked the result?
oh yeah,
You
I
observed
still
the
I
result. You
love them.
liked the
Even to this
okay.
day, I look at them and it makes me so happy. Like, I'm just like, my God,
Did
it's
you made
so
a Did you
beautiful.
make an exhibition about it
I
with them?
did, yeah. I blew them up. So I blew them up really big, and I
Mhm.
made these giant paintings out of them. And I had these
Okay.
exhibitions. I've had many exhibitions of these things. I had one that was They toured in France at a museums all across France, and I've had them in different cities, and um, yeah. So I would go to the copy center, and I would blow them up on these big pieces of paper, and then I would transfer the ink onto the canvas, and then I would paint in the lines and everything. And yeah, that was my process. But it never would have happened if I didn't have this crazy time, you
Yeah.
know. And then I was like, obviously, yeah, that's what it's about. It's just about the process. The creative process um is everything, you know, for an artist. And it has nothing to do with what people say about what you're doing or how they're taking it, because you have no control over that. And that's one of the main problems with artists, because they're stuck in this
Fear,
idea
fear
that they
of
have to,
rejection. Yeah.
not only that, but a fear of success,
Mhm.
and trying to fit into this idea of what an artist is instead of just living,
Yeah.
you know, as an artist. So
I don't call, I was never, I was a craft woman for a long time, but I experienced the same thing in a way, although I see crafts as a different thing from art. But I remember passing hours and hours just working. In the beginning, I loved it. I loved finding that material, see what I could do with it, discover all the possibilities about it. That was the
yeah,
best part.
yeah,
It was so cool.
yeah,
I loved it. Then eventually I won prizes, best craft woman of the year, you know, stuff
yeah,
like that in some exhibitions and markets and things like that.
cool.
Yeah, but at that point already, I was bored to death to do that. I was
Oh,
really just
right.
doing it for the money. And I mean, I still believed in making it, you know, beautiful and putting some beauty and put a part of me there. And although I used to say all the time, this is not art, this is crafts. I look at Miguel more as the artist, you know, and I'm more the craft woman, practical, you know,
Yeah,
to the point. But I could see that there was a lot of my personality in those practical items that I was producing in wool and felt. But it started getting really boring. I just started hating going to the atelier and having to work on my own, you know, and just I just started feeling what the hell am I doing, you know? And I was making good money with it. We were living out of that, you
yeah,
know, while we were making good money. And yeah, just I understand that with even in not just in art, but even it's just for crafts. If you're producing something,
absolutely. Yeah,
if you
yeah,
lose the love for doing it, and then I decided to study and do a course and just do other things because I
yeah,
realized, what am I doing here? I should be with people, not inside a workshop
yeah,
for I don't know how many hours. This is
yeah,
silly. I should
yeah,
be talking with people and learning with people and doing
yeah.
things and making things with them and not be here. So I decided to become a social worker. That
Wow,
was
yeah,
another idea.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's one of the
Mhm.
that's a big problem with a lot of artists, you know. And I came across this problem too of isolation, and that's why one of the reasons I moved into a community of artists. You know, a couple different times I did that, and it makes all the difference in the world. You know, if you can collaborate, or even
Mhm.
just like have someone down the road who is an artist, and you can just, you know, hobnob and hang out. That makes all the difference in the world,
Mhm.
you know, especially if you're doing visual or even crafts, you know, or some kind of visual or art or sculpture or anything like that, where it's solitary. It's a solitary act. You really have to like being alone for
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah, at the time I didn't. Now I think probably I would look at it in a different way. Why did you stop painting? I mean, I'm not, this is the conclusion I'm taking because I never hear you talking about it. So I'm assuming you're not. If it's too personal.
No, no, no. It's I'm just trying to think.
Yeah.
I stopped because I wasn't really enjoying it anymore. And I was enjoying music more. And also because I realized like I'm a big loner, but when I'm creating, I like to be with other people, and I like to react, or I like to
Interact.
collaborate,
Yeah.
interact. Yeah.
Mhm.
I like to interact. And music is a great collaborative art, whereas painting is not so great. I've tried it as collaboration, and sometimes it works, but it's mostly it's a solitary thing for me, and I never could make it really collaborative. But music is always there's always the potential for collaboration and public expression, um, and it's not just hanging things on a wall. I got tired of that after a while, like making things. I didn't want to make things anymore,
Mm-hmm.
because I've already had a lot of stuff. I had all these paintings.
But some people can have an experience by looking at your art.
It's
So you're
true.
not just making things.
It's true, but I didn't want to make things anymore.
Okay.
I got tired of just, I don't know, having a studio and having all this stuff. And I'm, I'm kind of a gypsy, I'm kind of um, I don't like to stay in one place for long periods of time. So I would, I would amass all these materials and I'd make a bunch of paintings and I'd have this big studio um, and then I would just leave, and then someone else would have to deal with the paintings, the or I would sell some, but there was always extra ones lying around. And then I started burning them, and that was a relief. So it was like I just don't want to. It's stuff. I don't really want to deal with so much stuff anymore. And I just want to be.
Yeah, I get that.
So,
Yeah.
but I mean, I might go back to it someday. Who knows? I still have ideas about paintings. I still come up with ideas like, oh, that would be a great
I'm
exhibition.
always coming up with ideas about painting and I never sit to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'm
Okay.
always all
I
the
didn't know
time.
that.
Yeah.
Ah, that's
Yeah.
great.
There's many things
Yeah.
you don't.
Yeah.
Just as a reality check. Anyway, I keep thinking and I love the idea that one day I'll be able to sit in my land and paint all the landscapes and all the moments and all the things that I thought were absolutely stunning, and I want to put them in the yeah.
Wow, I didn't know you were a painter.
I'm
I don't
not a
think you ever
painter.
told. Well, you just said.
No,
You were
I would
talking about.
like to be a painter. Not
Oh, I see. Okay, but
I painted for
anyone who wants to be a painter is a painter.
yeah.
Like if you really want it, that's yours.
Yeah.
It's not. I don't think it has to do with talent or anything like that. That's a
Hmm.
bunch of bullshit.
Yeah,
If
you
you
did
really
say
want
that
it,
in a book.
you really want it. You are it.
I always draw well, it's like Olivia, she's the same, I was
Oh
always
yeah.
good drawing and I spent my childhood drawing, just making,
Okay.
and I used to love, that was my favorite hobby,
Oh,
drawing.
okay. So you are a visual artist.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, that helped the craft making and becoming good at it. But I think the creative process became stuck at a certain point in my life. I know why. I now know why and what
Yeah.
happened. But and then I don't think I could ever. I remember literally going into a paper, and as a kid, I could just do whatever without thinking much. And then it started being like judging myself too much, and what am I gonna do? And I would think so much that I would not be able to do anything. And I really remember the frustration of sitting in front of the paper and not being able to do anything with
Yeah.
it, and I wanted
Yeah.
to. So yeah, but that's I would like to have probably a set of questions about creativity and intuition and
Yeah. Sure.
and
Yeah.
all that, which
Yeah.
we probably leave for another one. Retreats. So we started talking about retreats. Just what?
Are we veering off now
Yeah, we're
from
going
Sedona
back.
Method?
We know because it continues about the
Okay.
emotions and
I
the
see. Okay.
spirituality and
Oh,
all
gotcha.
that.
Okay. Yep. Got it. Okay.
Does it make sense, community retreats, like retreating with people? Does it make sense for you? Maybe,
Does it make
okay.
sense for you?
No, I'm asking you. I'm asking you. It's okay to be asking you, okay? And I know it makes sense to each one their thing, okay? Fine. But I'm asking you, what is your experience, your conclusion about between individual retreats and group retreats?
Okay, so I don't have an opinion about
Mhm.
other people doing retreats, about what they should do. For me, I'm no longer drawn to doing group retreats, although I would lead them if someone asked me to, but I don't feel the need to do that anymore. Now,
For
solitary
yourself.
for
Yeah.
myself, yeah, I've done a lot of them, quite a lot, maybe too many. And I've also done a lot of solitary retreat, and I prefer that because I can go, I know how it works now. Like I can go deep and I really enjoy it. And I enjoy being in solitude. It's just such a great thing for me. So yeah, I'm not really drawn so much to group retreats. However, it was a big part of my development. And if someone told me, when I got into meditation to go do a solitary retreat, I would have run away from them because I had no idea what that was about. And I had to be introduced to this idea. So in the Theravadan traditions, there's a lot of group retreats. And even in the Mahayana traditions, there are also a lot of group retreats. But when I got more into Mahayana, especially Tibetan Buddhism, they really the tradition I studied in is very big on doing solitary retreats, as many of the Tibetan traditions are. They're pushing people to do solitary retreat, and the tradition that I studied in suggests a 3-year solitary retreat, which I had embarked on and then canceled for various reasons. But I wanted to do a 3-year solitary retreat. And I have quite a few friends who have done it. And it's quite an undertaking, but I never did it. And I'm glad I didn't do it because I wasn't ready. And I may do it at some point. But I really think like a month or two is great. It's really great for me personally. Like even a couple weeks, but a month or more is fantastic for me just to get into a groove, and it's bliss for me. It's really just like a beautiful thing. And yeah, and if anyone is interested in that, I'm happy to talk about, more about what that might entail. But everyone's different.
Mhm.
So people are going to do it differently, you know.
Yeah. I was in a few retreats, group retreats, but my conclusion of it was that I was losing a lot of my energy into the group, for the group, to the group. It
Yeah.
became a thing of the group. And I do that a lot. I put myself always in a position of thinking about the group dynamics instead of thinking about my own. And that I came to the conclusion it did work. It was lovely. And I really had a great experience with it. But still, I
Yeah.
can see that the whole potential of retreating from
Yeah.
my life and my routine and,
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
not fulfilled.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So I would like to do, but yeah, 1 2 months. I'm really happy just with the idea of managing a week.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's
Well, baby steps.
yeah, exactly. I don't have more questions.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's perfect timing because it looks like Henry has broken out the
you woke
guitar.
up. Yeah, broken up. Did you break it?
No,
Uh,
he's he's pulled out the guitar and he's now
and you're worried. You're starting to
he's
get
starting
nervous.
to practice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I get nervous when Olivia grabs my guitar. And look, mom, playing, playing, playing. Oh,
yeah,
oh, yeah, that's lovely, Ollie.
yeah,
Can you
yeah,
just be careful?
yeah. No, yeah, same thing today. Great. Okay. So excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
And come back again and we'll
Yeah,
do another one.
let's do it.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
See you next
Catch
time.